Good morning, children. Now, lesson 2, section 1 is over. A fairy with horns. Hope all of you all have read the lesson. Now, you remember what happened in section 1. That is, the name of the author is Ruskin Bond. Ruskin Bond, one day when he was sitting near the canal, a baby goat came and nudged him. And then what happened? The baby goat did not go anywhere but followed him all the way home. So, he took the goat home. Grandfather was very happy to see the goat, but grandmother was very unhappy. Why? She was angry because already there were many pets at home and she was already tired looking after all those pets. Especially there was a growing young tiger. She had to prepare a special meal for the tiger, and also one mischievous, very naughty monkey also was there. So grandmother was against bringing this goat. But grandfather and Ruskin Bond, the author, finally told her that when the goat becomes big, grows up, it will give you milk, which is good for your rheumatism. Now we go to section 2. Goats grow fast, and unlike Peter Pan and the fairies, Tinker had to grow up. So you remember the name of the goat was Tinker Bell. And Peter Pan was the storybook. Tinker Bell was the name of the fairy in the story of Peter Pan. To begin with, Tinker Bell developed a neat little pair of horns, suggesting a relationship not to Peter Pan, the boy who never grew up, but to Pan, a Greek god who had goat's feet and horns and the body of a young man. So in Greek stories and all, you can see a god who had goat's feet and horns and the body of a young man. So this goat also started developing a small little horns. If you have goats at home, you can watch them. Tinker Bell's appetite began to increase too in the direction of the garden. The leaves of the sweet pea, the nasturtium and the geranium were her favorites. You know, goats love to eat the leaves. So in the garden, in the grandmother's garden, there was leaves of the sweet pea. The nasturtium you see in the picture, you can see a garden plant with round leaves and red, orange or yellow flowers. You all might be having it at home, very small orange red flowers. And the geranium is also a plant with a red, pink or white flowers and round leaves. So this goat liked to eat the leaves of these plants. And one morning, grandmother found all her sweet peas destroyed, and she was in a fine frenzy. Fine frenzy means in a very great anger. She was very angry because she found that all the leaves of the sweet pea plant was destroyed. I blamed a cow and suggested it had got into the garden at night when the gate was left open. So the author said perhaps it was not the goat who ate it, it was the cow, because the gate of the house was left open. Grandmother made no comment, but the look in her eyes suggested that she had her own suspicions of who the culprit might be. Culprit means the thief. Who the thief was, grandmother knew very well, because it was only the goat who ate the leaves and not the cow. The next day, the gardener, 80-year-old Dookie, who had never made a complaint in his life, came to grandmother to say that he had been bending over the nasturtium bed, putting it right again, when the goat had come up quietly and butted him violently from behind. In the picture you can see the old man, he is making the sweet pea, the nasturtium bed properly, and the goat coming and butting him from behind. So he came and complained to grandmother, saying that I will not work again unless the goat was tied up. He refused to do any more work in the garden unless the goat was kept tied up. Tied up means what, you know? Ketted up. So he told the grandmother that the goat must be tied up, only then I will do any work in the garden. And by the way, said grandmother, after we had placated her again, placated means calmed her down, when are we going to have that milk we were promised? So grandmother is asking, when are we going to have the milk? You all told me that the goat will give us milk, and the goat is not yet grown up. So grandfather stroked his red beard and tried to look innocent as he replied, well, I'll try to find a he goat, my dear. and then we'll have to provide a suitable place for the kids. So first we must make a home for them. I must find a he-goat, and then we have to find a place where the children, small ones, the kids can be kept. Only then the goat will start giving milk. So all that grandmother said was, "Oh," but the way she said it betokened that we would be in for trouble sooner or later. But she did not believe what the grandfather and the author said. And trouble, like unseasonal rain, came when we were least expecting it. So soon later, the trouble came in the form of a lady. That's section 3. Tinker, having discovered the uses to which she could put her horns, soon began using them. You remember, the goat has grown horns on her head, and she started using the horns. The postman and the cook both had occasion to regret having turned their backs on her. So whenever she sees anybody bending down, what would she do? The goat would go and poke them with their horns. This state of affairs came to a climax during the visit of a distant relative of ours, a large lady who was in the habit of bending over flower pots and holding silly little conversations with the flowers. So one day, their relative, a very old lady, came there, and she loved flowers and she always loved talking to them. She went near them, bent over them and started talking with them. So when she came here, when she saw the geranium, "Oh, you rapturous geranium," rapturous means very beautiful, she gushed on her first day with us, leaning over a pot in the veranda and eclipsing the sun for a moment. So she was a very fat old lady, and when she bent over the veranda, what happened? Yes, they did not get any light there. They thought that sun had gone. And when she bent over the veranda looking at the flower, what did Tinker do? Tinker, who was tied to the veranda porch, suspecting that the lady was also interested in geranium leaves, decided to butt her out of the way of her favorite snack. You remember, Tinker was very interested in eating the leaves of this geranium plant. So when she saw that this old lady was bending over the flowers and talking to it, she thought that this lady was also plucking all the leaves, so he would not get any food. So it was the end. So what did she do? It was the end of Tinker's residence with us. The lady insisted she had been badly bruised, though she refused grandfather's offer of first aid. So what did the goat do? The goat went and poked her on the back, and the back was hurt now. But she said the goat must be taken away from the house. And she told grandmother, "Take it away right now." Grandmother ordered the cook to take Tinker straight to the bazaar and sell her at any price to the first customer who came along. So what did the grandmother order? She said, "You take the goat." She called the cook, told him to take Tinker to the bazaar, to the market, and sell her to anybody who comes first at whatever price. Tinker seemed to know she was being taken away forever. Her eyes were quite moist. So Tinker knew that he was being taken away from that house. He would never come back again. So what happened? Her eyes were quite moist. She was almost about to cry. Her eyes were filled with tears. I stood at the gate and watched her being led away. So the author, he was standing at the gate of the house and watching the cook taking away Tinker. She kept looking back and bleating. Bleating means the sound made by the goat, the cry of the goat. So wondering why I was not accompanying her on this particular walk. So what did he do? He was standing at the gate and watching, and the goat was turning back and looking at the author. Why he was not coming with her? I could only wave to her and hope that her next owner would be kind and tolerant. So he prayed that the next owner, whoever comes and buys her, would be kind to her. When the cook returned without Tinker, he said she had been sold to an old woman. So the cook came back and told the author, "I have sold Tinker to an old woman." but later he told me in a confidential whisper that he had not sold Tinker but had taken her to the house of a relative where she would be well looked after and where I could see her from time to time. Confidential whisper means very quietly, without anybody hearing. The cook came and told Ruskin Bond that Tinker, I did not sell Tinker in the market. Instead, he had taken Tinker to his relative, to the cook's relative, where she would be well looked after. The relative would look after the goat very well. I did visit Tinker occasionally. So, he went with the cook to the relative's house to see Tinker, and in due course, I found her with a little white kid. So, after some time, the goat grew up and it got a little white kid. Kid is a baby goat. Tinker was giving the cook's relatives over half a seer of milk a day, and they were very pleased with her. Half a seer means an old Indian measure almost equal to a liter. So, daily she gave 1 liter of milk, and the people in the house where the goat was staying loved her, were very happy with her. She was on good terms with everyone in the house and only butted strangers who bent too low when giving the customary salam. So, everybody in the house loved Tinker very much and were happy with her, and she only butted strangers who bent too low when giving the customary salam, when they bowed. Only when strangers came and bowed to them, when you wished them, only then the goat came and butted the strangers at the back. It was written by Ruskin Bond. Now, work in pairs, discuss and answer these questions. Number 1, why was Tinker sent away? Why was Tinker sent away? So, Tinker was sent away because he had butted the old woman who came there. And what happened to her? Tinker was taken to the market to be sold. Now, read and understand the worksheet, tick the correct options. All this I will be sending you all the picture in. Now, answer these questions with reference to the context. We will do it in the next class. Okay, thank you. Read the lesson well.